Hello, my name is Crystal Petry, and you are watching another episode of the Crystal Petry Podcast, Season 3. Today, I am honored to sit down with Dr. Mary Darden Robinson, a trailblazer in psychology and part of the only 5% of psychologists who are Black. Her journey through higher education has been filled with trials, triumphs, and lessons that most people never hear about. She is here to speak about the unspoken realities of earning degrees and higher degrees, navigating spaces where you're often the smartest person in the room, and the power to build true alliances. She's here to share her story and her wisdom with all of us. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Mary.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be having this discussion.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so I'm ready. I'm ready to get into this conversation. I really, really am. Where in the world are you, Dr. Mary?
So I am in the Hampton Roads area in Virginia. So the five
Okay.
cities, Hampton, Newport News, Portsmouth, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, that area.
Okay, excellent. I was just going to say the VA.
That works too.
The VA. Okay, so my first question, or rather my second question, if we're being literal here, what inspired you to pursue psychology? Because as I stated in my intro, it's not a lot of African Americans in that field.
I've always had an interest in understanding how other folks live, as well as how folks navigate diversity. So to bring it back to when I was in school, I was always the person that people would come to seek advice and what should I do? You know, I'm in this situation. And I found that I was actually pretty good at helping to navigate people to make their own decisions. So not saying this is what you need to do, but let's talk about what it is that you're trying to accomplish with whatever the decision is that you're trying to make and how you can do that in a space that's beneficial in your life. And so I've always been fascinated with human behavior, and definitely always very motivated, by the idea of resilience and bounce back.
Okay. When you started your degree, and of course you have to get your undergrad degree, then your master's degree, and then your doctorate degree. I'm assuming that was your pathway in this field. When you started your degree, and you can speak on either one of those, whether you want to speak on your undergrad, your master's, or your degree or your doctorate, what did you not expect during your academic journey?
What I did not expect was the emotional toll that came with making a decision to be terminally educated. So I grew up in a household where I was military. We moved around the country, different spaces, and I was always the military child, but there were always other military children. And so I was always a part of something greater than myself. And it wasn't based upon culture and what you look like. It was, oh, you're the military children. So we were all part of that community. And unfortunately, early on in my life, I lost my dad. He was actually in the Air Force. And so after losing my father, we came to Virginia. So, and in Virginia is where my mom's family was. And so the first time that I realized that I was different in the way that I navigated life, made decisions, spoke and showed up authentically was in my own family. I got the you speak differently. Why do you like that? We don't do that. We don't wear that. I had very worldly views. And so I liked everything and was interested in everything. And so from that perspective, going into a space where I was viewed differently as a student, I wasn't the military child at that point when I was going to pursue these degrees. I was an African American woman. And so the adjustment to that space, that was the first thing that people were going to see and call out. I had no idea the emotional toll that would take on being able to show up authentically. So I'm a person that loves my nails and my hair. And if it's busy, trust me, I'm probably doing it or about to do it all at
Yes.
once and all together. And I realized that was, rather than that being something that I thought was a strength, that people had all these other perceptions and narratives pertaining to how I showed up. And so it came with a bunch of emotional toll and self-doubt and things that I didn't see coming because, of course, get your education, no one can take it from you, is what I was always told.
That's what I was always told too, and I'm sure a lot of people listening heard the same wording. How did you, and this is me assuming that you have, Dr. Mary, how did you navigate that emotion and that stress that came along when people outside basically identified who you were? You're not the college student, you're not the student with that's going to be a psychologist, you're not the military student, you're the Black student.
Mhm. It's been an ongoing experience, is what I would say. Early on, I kind of didn't really want to believe it was happening. So I would kind of be like, okay, well, maybe this role didn't work out, or, there was someone that was more qualified. And I would try to give my field some grace and be like, it can't be that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had all of these continuous experiences that were showing me that it was just that, down to being offered opportunities only for people to bring their next person in line into that role. It was never really a position I could get. So almost like a fake opportunity. And so once I realized that it was happening, I put a name and a face to it. I started to understand what it meant. And I started to take it in a space of, well, if you're going to think that anyway, I'm going to still continue to challenge you, but I'm going to show you that there is Black girl magic. And so to get to that space took a lot of tears, a lot of soul searching, a lot of finding community and people that support me and support my ideas, and that just want to see you win. But I can be honest, at first, I did not want to admit that it was happening until it really became just blatantly obvious. And I talk a little bit about that in Triumph in the Trenches when I speak about all these different roles, such as, being a ghostwriter that I did not sign up for. So I've had roles where people would rather use what I'm saying and my ideas and my thoughts, because I'm kind of outside of the box, as you can see. And I wouldn't get offered into the room, but my ideas would. And my ideas would make it from someone that doesn't look like me.
Mm.
And so the ghostwriting, once I realized that was happening, it was like I would be reading through something and be like, oh, that is definitely my words. You don't even know how to explain that because you don't know the perspective of where I'm coming from. And that came with emotional toll too. Why can I not be at the table? Why can I not be in the room? Why can I not present my idea? Why does it have to be you? Is it because, of what I look like? And a lot of the time, I'm going to tell you, most of the time, it was very clear that it was this. It was how I authentically showed up and who I was, not on paper. On paper is fine.
Mm-hmm.
People read the resume, they call me, and in 5 seconds when I meet you, I can tell when you shake my hand whether you're a safer sort of individual or you're somebody that is just really not interested.
What did you think? What was the first thing you thought, Dr. Mary, when you found out that you were part of only 5% of Black psychologists?
I believed it, and I thought to myself, first of all, it was pretty huge. I was like, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But if I thought about all of these adverse experiences that I had, and I thought about what it took to get to where I am, even though I'm still arriving, it made sense. I can imagine also there are plenty of psychologists, folk that were training that decided that maybe it wasn't what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that left, based on some of these experiences that I've had. I'm pretty certain, even though initially I thought I was the only one, that I'm not the only one. So I want to be that person to start a community for folks that think they are the only one.
Right. Because everyone's living in their own bubble. And you're right. If you're living in your own bubble and no one inside that bubble looks like you or is pursuing degrees like you are, you really do feel like I'm the only one. And you feel like you have to bear that burden. If that's the correct word to use, you have to bear that burden all by yourself.
Absolutely. And, the other part I will say too, is that one particular situation I experienced happened. I had some workplace bullying. I was not being treated very nicely. And it was clear that it was intentional. And so when I explored that, that was from someone that looked like us, right?
Wow.
And so it was so bad that I was in probably about my second year of my doctoral. Um, I never told that employer that I was getting my doctoral until I tried to get an advancement. And I went for advancement and I told them in an interview. They had no idea because there was so many other things that I was being focused on for that I knew that education piece would be that one extra thing because I was well read, able to speak and articulate and to write and to show up.
And that's something, and I'll just be a little vulnerable here. I have my master's degree, Dr. Mary, but it is not something that I lead with.
Mhm.
It's not something that I lead with because of the pushback that I've received when I used to lead with that,
Mhm.
whether that was in professional realms and even some personal realms. You know, you get pushback, you get people looking at you crazy, you get people say stuff to you and they say it in a joking manner, but you know that they mean it in a negative, disparaging manner. So I don't even lead with having my master's anymore. And I shouldn't have to live in a world like that, just like you should not have had to not tell people you are a doctorate or you're getting your doctorate because of what would have happened to you. It's unfortunate when you have or when you're pursuing higher degrees. What have been, and you've gave us a couple examples thus far, but what has been some emotional highs and lows about earning advanced degrees?
So I'll start with the high. I am in my immediate family the only person that's terminally degreed.
Okay.
And so it was something that was on my bucket list. And graduating and completing a program of that stature, knowing that that was something that my father believed in, was incredibly humbling. And I felt so great about it. Now, what I did not see coming was all this other stuff and all these other targets that I was going to face. And so some of on the other side of that, the downside has been, times where I doubt myself. People call it, um, it just left me, but I'll get back to it.
Okay.
Imposter syndrome. That's where I
Hmm.
was going. So people call it imposter syndrome. And I was doing a training maybe about 2 years ago, and a young lady shared, well, is it imposter syndrome or is it imposter treatment?
Oh, I've never heard it referred to that. Please
Oh,
expound.
it was, first of all, to give you the background, I was doing a training in substance use. As you know, even though I'm a psychologist, I'm dually licensed in mental health and counts in substance use. And so to be able to be in the space of providing a training at a national event is a huge deal
That's
anyhow.
huge. Yes.
Yes. And so the training was not, I mean, it was diverse, but not as diverse as it could be so far as the participants and who showed up.
Hmm.
And so when this comment was made, this young lady, she and I have now connected and have since kind of forged a relationship. But she is Caucasian. And I was having this conversation about representation and advocacy and everything. And when she made that comment, there were so many eyes that led on her like, what? And I said,
Exactly.
oh my goodness, you and I have to talk. I said, we've got to talk, we've got to catch up. Because the whole idea was, is this, first of all, am I imagining this? And the answer was no. Is it that I feel inadequate, or is it that people are treating me as if I'm inadequate? Those are totally different things.
Yes.
And so for that to be the underpinning of that discussion just really is something that I will always take with me as I move forward. Um, because for her to have mentioned that, it even made me think differently about it, because you stay in this space where you're thinking maybe this stuff is not happening. It's the gaslighting, it's the, people doing things to make you think that you are completely out there when this
Yes.
stuff is really happening. down to I've had people that say to me, I had one person I was supervising say, I can't keep any of my Black therapists. This was a Caucasian lady that was
Wow.
absolutely. And she said it to me so many times that I had to say to her, this was not her name, but Miss Jane, like, can you help me to understand why you keep bringing that up in our conversation? And it was, the comments didn't stop. You're well read. Oh, you've done this. Oh, you've done that. But the problem came with the doctor. That was the piece that people constantly made me the invisible doctor. Oh, I'm purposely not going to call her Dr. Anybody. I would shake hands and I would say, hey, I'm Dr. Mary. How you doing? So Mary, what are you thinking about? And I'd be like, that is not how I introduced myself. And who is Mary? Because I don't even identify with Mary, whoever she is. I identify with Dr. Mary. And so folks started to have this created narrative or false perception of who I was. Oh, she's got to be, arrogant for her to do that. No, I did that because too many people purposely tried to take from me what I earned. No one's out there handing out doctorals
At all.
So if it is, you let me know, because one particular university owes me a crap ton of money that I'm not going to ever get back. So, but I found that more often people had this perception of me being arrogant when it had nothing to do with that. It was, you can call it, X person doctor. Oh, but you're not a medical doctor. I'm sorry. That's just as rude.
Right. And that's probably why, and I know that's not her real name, Miss Jane couldn't keep her psychologist because she approached them and had interactions with them just like how she did with you.
And was very comfortable with it. For her to say it as many times, like, because at first when she did it, I was like, okay. Like with me, my sister says it's my counselor side. Like, I'll give you a pass, right? But don't keep coming around that corner. So Ms. Jane said it so many times that I had to sit down with her and say that. And then the conversation went to, well, I have Black friends. Ma'am, let's just stop. This is not
None of those things. Let's just pivot for a second, Dr. Mary. None of those things are good things. I have Black friends. That is not a good thing. You're so well spoken. Not a good thing. You're so well read. Not a good thing. None of those things are considered comments or positives in the Black community.
And it is unfortunate that folks do not realize that. Some people I will give a pass, they don't realize. Some people do, and just purposely still, make the adjustment. I put your doctoral behind your name. I thought that was okay. No, we just had a conversation about a month ago of why that wasn't okay. Right. And so if people would not try to make it, make me the invisible doctor, I probably would have moved on. But now it is something that I spend a lot of time talking about, because I'm typically, the person that's the most agreed, but I'm usually treated the worst at the organizations that I've worked with.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so this is another one. Then I'll move on to the next, my next question. I don't see color. That is not a compliment or anything good in the Black community. When you tell someone Black, oh, I don't see color.
It absolutely is not.
It's not. It's not. Okay, so if there's nothing else that you will learn in this podcast, those 4 or 5 things, please take that out of your vocabulary.
I'm going to add one more, because this one I could go on and on. I'm not going to do it, but I could go on and on about, because what I encountered was this conversation. I have a biracial child. Oh, that doesn't mean that you can't have a level of prejudice. It doesn't. And so I think, one of the largest pieces is making sure that folks advocate for there to be representation. I've had clients that will come and speak to me because my approach is totally different. I've had them say, well, I know that you're here to hear what I have to say. And they will purposely come to me because I give the space that I don't care what your background is. Let's talk about what's going on and how I can help. And I can pivot, and I'm pretty flexible with all kinds of individuals because I grew up worldly, as I said, in the military. And then I went to a private Catholic school for 3 years. So I have all these experiences that have made me who I am. And people just initially create this narrative. You have got to be the angry Black woman. I'm looking at you, the nails, the hair, all of that. and don't have an opinion, because you're definitely the angry Black woman. And if
Oh,
the opinion is not supported, you better know it's coming.
yes. Okay, let's talk about your trials and your triumphs with pursuing higher education. What are some of the hidden challenges with pursuing advanced degrees that nobody is talking about?
One is the financial responsibility. I think people think, they share things about it, but they don't really go deep into that. And so to get an advanced degree, unless you're financially independently wealthy, which I
Mhm.
am not, it takes a financial amount of money to make that happen, right? And so when you're done with your advanced degree and you go into your field, the opportunities that are out there may not meet financially what it is that you're looking for in order to maintain your standard of life. I have, had my folks contact me about my loan, and they're like, "Oh, we'd like you to pay $700 a month." I'm like, "Where am I going to get seven? I am a psychologist. I'm a counselor. Where am I getting $700 from?"
Mhm.
The expectation financial is just completely ridiculous. Um, and in our current state, it's not getting any better, is what I will say. So definitely the financial piece of that. Also, I'll say the emotional toll, going back to that, and the self-doubt, and wondering if the burden was really even worth it. Like I said, to be in a space where you're in school and doing all of these things, to prepare. So to go back a little bit, I had been licensed before I got the terminal degree.
Mhm.
And so what I realized is people only saw me as a therapist. I had all these different gifts and talents beyond that. And so I thought, well, let me go ahead and finish this advanced degree. It's in an area that will show that I can do some other things like project management and all these other areas, because people constantly kept putting me in this box. And I was like, well, this will allow me to get the positions and the roles that go beyond providing the direct care. Not that I didn't like it.
Mhm.
It's just a progression, a natural, progression. And then after doing that and getting this doctoral, I found that people misrepresented opportunities. So it would be, we'd like you to do all of these things that are in leadership, and you'll be program managing, for whatever this area is that we're providing. But I found out what it really was is you want me to do direct care, because you still don't see me as being able to handle those tasks, because you see me as a therapist, which there's nothing wrong with that. But beyond a therapist, I have so many other gifts. And I purposely went back to school to be able to showcase those gifts. And what I found is that they still haven't been recognized. What I find also in my field is if you don't have an MBA, folks talk or speak differently to you. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't support MBAs. Please don't get that wrong. I want to blow the internet up with that one. I
Mhm.
do. But there's something to be said about the compassion and the human piece of providing the services that I do provide, and being able to understand the other pieces. And so when I say the emotional toll, it's being put in a position to be typecasted, where you'll hire me to, show that you support diversity. I've been the diversity hire. People haven't told me, but I know that's what it's been, because I get into certain spaces, like I said, based off of the information and the creativity and the documentation that I create. But I don't show up in those spaces. My work does under someone else. But if it's an event in a community and you want to be perceived as, oh, this is a safer, because I don't say safe, because I've
Mhm.
found so many places that people say are safe are completely unsafe. So I say safer in these environments. I found that, you'll send me to certain events because you want this to show up, because it presents as if you're diversity friendly when you're not. And so what people don't understand is that being in that place where you're being showcased that way affects that person that you're using to be, that pawn. That person has a feeling, has emotions, and processing that has been difficult, and accepting that as well has been difficult.
Okay, I have two follow-up questions to that, Dr. Mary. One, you stated that while you were going through your doctorate and getting your advanced degrees, you wondered if it was worth it. Now that you're on the other side of it, have you come to a conclusion on Is it worth it or is it not worth it?
If I'm being honest, it's worth it. But for me, it's not only is it worth it, I have to ask several other questions based on what's important to me and what my themes are. So, what I have really worked on is I don't have to accept your narrative, right? So, I've been in positions where folks have purposely made it where you're going to sit, over here. We're going to use your work, but we don't want to hear you talk. We don't want to hear you speak. You're not getting invited to the meeting, so don't expect it, right? I've been in that space when then I've been like, oh, well, it doesn't matter. You can close front door, girl. I'll go in the back door. I will go into the side door. But as I've gotten older in my career too, I've understand or begin to understand the blessing in accepting the closed door. Because when I'm prying these doors open, there may be a reason that that door was closed, a pretty good reason. And so as I continue this journey, I'm realizing that as well. So I do think it's worth it. And I will take that back. I know that it's worth it because of the people that I've been able to support, the things that I've been able to help people refocus. And definitely every job I've had has been with vulnerable populations, substance use, mental health. I've worked in alternative schools. I've worked in probation with youth. So, and to be able to see someone that you worked with that had a court situation and you see them in the community and they're out and they have a family, because now my clients are like almost approaching 30 because I was very young when I was a probation officer. And for them to come and say, hey, I remember that you did such and such and I had to go upstate, but I'm better now. And I've had that happen more often than not to let me know that everything that I've done is worth it.
My second question, Dr. Mary, and it's along the same lines, the emotional toll, the pitfalls that you've had to navigate and walk around. What advice would you give to the people that are listening on how to navigate that? How do you navigate not being invited into the room? How do you navigate the emotional toll that people inflict upon you?
Well, going back to kind of what I said earlier, the importance is accepting and knowing that you're experiencing what you think you are,
Okay.
right? Because people will gaslight you, and you'll start to lose it a little bit yourself. Like, well, maybe they were right. Maybe I did do this. Know that what you're experiencing is real. Okay. Give yourself grace, but not only that, you have got to find ways to be okay that there are some relationships, some folks that are never going to be for you. That was another hidden gem that I didn't recognize. I thought, not that I thought everybody was going to be for me, but I just didn't realize the tenacity and motivation of folks, I'm going to say, that are not for you, that will try to destroy you. Some of them have, um, the wherewithal to take it very far to embarrass you or to make it appear as if you're not worthy or shouldn't be where you are. Find a good community and a place to put that. So, and I say that from a space of, I can recall sitting at a desk at a job where I was in leadership and being in tears, essentially because I was being misunderstood, gaslighted, all of these things that I mentioned and talk about. I was the ghostwriter for all these documents. And it wasn't until I realized, so at that time, I'm Not Yelling was out. And so when I read through that text, I realized that I wasn't by myself. And I was like, okay, so what am I going to do and how do I find my voice? And I ended up in a position to be part of an anthology, which I had never really thought about, where I was able to realize that I wasn't by myself. There were all these other people in all these different fields that had experienced something very similar. And so that made me realize that I was not imagining things, because I was starting to think for a second there, well, maybe I'm reading too far into this. And so it's learning where to put that. So one experience was I started writing, like I just shared. Another experience is know that there is nothing wrong with getting someone you can talk to. Okay, so I'm going to step outside the box just a little bit, because obviously I know that there is some fear sometimes and some disagreement in this space. But as African American folks, we can get therapy and it can work. For a very long time in households, it was because I heard it too. What happens in my house stays in my house. So many people are ill and sick because of that idea. It is okay to get someone that you can explore, talk to, bounce things off of, because it is also, there's something to be said about being resilient and being in the space of knowing that you will get through it. Not
In
around, but through it.
in that same lane, Dr. Mary, did you have a mentor as you were pursuing your higher degree to do as you were talking about, bounce things off of, talk to them about what's going on in your head and what's going on in your heart? Did you have a mentor while you were pursuing your higher degree?
Not consistently. That is another area of opportunity, especially for folks of color. We have got to be willing to pour into other folks. It's okay. There's enough space for all of us out here. It is okay to help one another. And I will say, not all the time did I have a mentor. I had a few people that came across my path that did things to set me to where I was going. So, real quick, short story.
Mm-hmm.
I was a program administrator at this organization. And so I was over like all these different programs and stuff. And so we were having an event. Now, you see me as this person showing up, inauthentic. I used to be the person that was like, let me be behind, let me be in the back, cheering you on, getting everything together. I don't have to be in the front. And so this particular leader, who was my direct supervisor, came to me and she said, for this event, we're not using such and such. You're going to do the event. You're going to MC the event.
Was that your first time that they said that to you?
For this particular person, it was, but this person hired me into a situation that was real jacked up.
Okay.
But she believed in me is what I'm going to say. So I was like, I'm not doing that. I don't do crowds and in front of people. Like, I was the person when I was probation officer, let me talk to you before court so you don't call me up there, because I do not want to be up there in front of all those people. And so that became one of the most pivotal parts of my experience thus far, because there were over 300 people there. First of all, way out of my comfort zone. And I was able to handle that. And what she said was, I knew you could handle it, and I needed other people to know that too.
Wow.
And I was in shock, like, what? And she was like, no,
That's
I needed them to see that. I saw that in you, but I needed them to see that in you.
Did you see that in you, Dr. Mary?
I had been told it was there, but no, not for no 300 people. I was like, absolutely not. Because also, kind of like being live and being out, if you mess up, like, you can't play that off. Like, there was all the city management people there, like everybody was there. And I was incredibly scared that I was going to do something to mess it up. And it was to this day, one of the most important experiences I ever had. And at the end, for her to say, that's why I did it, I had to appreciate that.
Have you gone back and told her what a blessing that was to you and still remains to this day?
I've tried to keep a relationship there. It didn't kind of sustain when I left the organization. But I can tell you that's something that I think is on the horizon. I've had like little conversation, but not really the break where I feel like it's been through like text. Hey, how you doing? I check in and things like that. But I would love to be able to be in a space to tell her thank you, because she didn't have to do that. And I'm sure she caught a bunch of darts for doing that.
Yes. Okay, Dr. Mary, let's talk about being the smartest person in the room. What does that really feel like?
That's a good one. What it really can feel like is a lot of different things. Regardless of the accolades and the initials and all of that stuff, there's still a level of fear. And so one of the things that I do talk to people about is, especially if you've had these adverse experiences, like in your professional career, is not to take that into new experiences, which is very tough.
Yes.
Because it's easy, I call it the pink unicorn. So, and for purpose of keeping that conversation going, I always have a pink unicorn. Right?
I love it. Is that a pencil or a pen? The pink unicorn?
It's a fidget.
Oh, a fidget. Okay.
I'm a fidgety person. right? So when I have to do these things, I have to make sure that I prepare myself so that I can feel safer in a space to be able to be who it is that I'm, showing up as. Because at home, I'm not Dr. Mary. At home, I'm just Mary, right? But I say that to say, when you are the smartest person in the room, there is some fear. And there may be some leftovers or some residuals from other situations, and you don't want to see the pink unicorn all the time. Now, what I will tell you though, is if the pink unicorn, you see it and they've done like 10 things, they could be the community you're working in or what have you, there will be another 10, believe them. Process though through that, and don't allow your book bag, your invisible book bag or 18-wheeler truck or whatever you got back there to disrupt your ability to move into your calling and your future. I would also say with the whole idea of being the smartest person in the room, there is a sense of having to be perfect, because the expectation is that you show up authentically perfect all the time and that you never have a bad day. And that is completely unrealistic. If you set yourself to show up, to think that that's a realistic goal, you will constantly be disappointing yourself. So there's also the fear of, or the realness of, I have to make sure I get it right.
But it sounds like a lot of that is internal. That thought, that fear is coming from within the person.
Absolutely. So you have to challenge that. Just as I work with folks in recovery and they're like, well, what do I do when I show up to a party and somebody pulls out something that I want? Like, what do I do? Okay, so we're going to work on refocusing and reframing that. So you show up to the party, that's what's going on. You have a decision to make. Do I stay? Do I go? What am I risking in both of those spaces? And so it's being able to challenge the thought as well, because sometimes it might really be some of your residual stuff, your leftover stuff, but sometimes it isn't. And so that's why I said, depending on how many times you're seeing this pink unicorn, there's a space to know that, to challenge whether it is or is not what you think it is. And there are times when being in a situation that's not safe, it is okay to exit. That's the other thing. Folks talk a lot about, well, I'm just going to stick it out. Well, I'm going to make people do this, or I'm going to make them know that I'm not this or that. And so what I recently realized is I've got to be okay with not accepting your narrative. There are some people that are never going to be team Dr. Mary. That is completely fine. Before I would be like, now, how do I get them to flip? How do I get them to pivot and be team Dr. Mary? It's not going to happen for everybody.
How long did it take you to go from, how do I get them to like me and recognize me and be on my team, to it's okay if they're not?
I'm going to say recently, in maybe the last 6 months. I'm an advocate for folks seeking out, treatment and service. And if you need therapy, it's okay. I'm an advocate for going to therapy and sharing your thoughts. And one of the conversations that I had was, because I'm big on coping skills. Oh, you have this situation, throw a coping skill at it. Let's work with it. And what this person in my life at that time said to me was, coping skills are temporary. They're not, you can't go into a pressure cooker every day and think that those coping skills are going to wish it away. And I had never thought about that. And so that's another defining moment, I would say, in the last year of my life, where I was like, you know what? You're right. And I said, because I feel like I'm screwing it up. How can I be telling people coping skills work and they're not working for me? And the person said, they're not working for you because this is a long-term issue. And you have gone by far the furthest you could go on coping skills.
Right.
And I had never thought of that before.
I'm sure a lot of people have never thought about that, because a lot of people probably think, let me implement this coping skill. Let me implement this way of thinking, and that's going to be the cure-all and the fix-all. And sometimes it's not. I mean, sometimes it does work, obviously, but sometimes it really does not. And you need to go further and deeper.
Absolutely. Because the next conversation was, okay, Dr. Mary, what are you going to do with that? Now that we've had this conversation, like you can't not move. So you've got to decide what your next step is. And so I've even taken that and implemented that in the space of when I'm helping folks. Like it gets to a space where you have to decide that. The other thing is coming from being the resilient bounce back sort of situation. I have all throughout my life, I have been that person that people kind of just, oh, okay, well, she said she's going to do that. Like to get my license, it took me 2 residencies. That's unheard of, right? But it took me an extra long time to get my license. And through that time, I got, oh, yeah, she's going to get her license someday. Oh, yeah. She said she's going to get it. So I find that I'm the person that people usually suspect I'm not going to do it. Now, it may take me a lot longer or I might have to take a different path, but people are usually, I'm the person that's counted out. And then when it happens, they're like, oh, my goodness, like you did that. I didn't think you were going to complete it. Yeah,
Right.
just choose a different way. So it's understanding also that I don't have to feel like my journey has to look like what people expect it to look like and what everybody else's journey looks like. And I don't have to feel like deciding to exit spaces that are not safe for me or safer is is more vulnerable situation. I can do that and make that decision and feel strong. No, I was not changing that environment. It was time for me to exit.
What do you do when people challenge your intelligence? I know that you can't challenge them back every single time because that would just be exhausting. Yes. So what do you do when people challenge your intelligence?
It's sad to say, but I'm so used to people doing it
Mm-hmm.
because it has happened so regularly that the first thought is usually, okay, so you've already put me in this box and decided I don't know anything. Back in the day, it would be an immediate response, like, no, let me show you. Oh, I can show you I can do it better than if you're going to say that I don't know what I'm doing. Now I'm at a space where I accept when people believe that, but I sit back and I wait for the aha moment to happen. Because every now and then, doesn't happen every time, but every now and then there's that moment. If I go back to the example that I shared with you about the leader I had that made me MC the event, and I was like, I'm not interested.
Right.
When I exited that situation, there was someone else in leadership that she could not stand Dr. Mary at all. Could not, and didn't even know me. That's what was so sad about it, but did not know me, just could not get with it because I looked different. And I wasn't interested in changing that. She had missed the days where I wore the wig to get the interview and all that. We were past that. I was already out here with the natural hair and doing what I do. And so when I left that environment, which was very toxic, the conversation was, I got a message from the leader I mentioned, and she said, I want you to know that Miss Johnson, said, even though she didn't like you, you knew your stuff.
The aha moment.
Yep. Now I was gone. I had been gone for like a year and some change and was putting them in their little box and moving on.
Yes.
It was a pretty painful experience. But for her to have said that and for that message to come back was the aha moment. She didn't like my style and how flashy and all that stuff I was. But for her to recognize when the next person came that I knew my stuff still was a compliment. And I can still take it for such.
Absolutely, you can. And that's normally when the aha moments come, when you leave, because as the old saying goes, they never miss you until you're gone.
Yep.
What advice would you give to people who have been othered or made to feel like they're other for standing out, for being flashy, for being different and thinking outside of the box?
I'm going to say lean into it.
Okay.
But understand that it is a process. And I say that because I've been eclectic my entire life, which is why I can feel when people are not really good with eclectic people. I can tell because I've been positioned and, to be able to feel that in order to navigate life. So I've always been a little different. And so one of the things that I used to do is I spent too much of my career listening to If You Did Less.
Wow.
So what I just mentioned was about the wigs. I had natural hair, but I would wear a wig to an interview. And once I get the job, I would come out. Not the best, not the best way to handle it, but I would show up in my suit with my wig on, with my natural hair underneath there. And the moment I got hired, and I would also tone down my nails. So I would get a French manicure, no shape or nothing. Sometimes I would take them off. And then the moment that I'm hired and I'm in there, I would come out. Right. That was how I handled that early on in navigating, workplace and situations, because I realized I wasn't going to be accepted. However, as my journey has progressed and I've come into who I am and I value who I am and I'm getting okay with where I'm going and being authentic, I've showed up authentically as myself. Online, when people research me, I have a website. I purposely made sure that I put myself up there as a Black woman with red dreads, with tooth gems and with nails, because what I don't want to do is misrepresent that. However, at that time when I was doing it, it was very important because I wouldn't even get the opportunity because I didn't look like what people wanted me to look like. And I got very annoyed with that, especially when I was doing everything I could. And you called me for this interview, so you know that I'm able to do the job.
Right.
But I got enough of being in that space of hearing, well, if you only did less.
Wow.
And it took me getting to the space that I am, having a community that was safer. Like I said, this anthology, we're on book 3 now, but it took this whole transformational experience for me to say, you know what, I'm gonna just show up as I am and they can either get with it or they don't. And if it doesn't work out, there's gonna be something that will. But I can tell you early on, I didn't think that. So I say lean in because it's a journey. And so it is a scary journey to know that someone's always going to, pick you out based on what you look like. And there are times when it's safe, but I will also safer, but I will also say there are times when it's been unsafe for me to do that. And I've still done it because representation is important. And everyone that I seek to help, they're all vulnerable folks. And if I can't show up and do it and be about it, then how can I expect them to be making changes if I won't do it?
Dr. Mary, being one of the 5% of Black psychologists, at least in the US, those numbers are based in the US. Do you feel like you have to speak for all Black people in that field?
Every now and then I do. Okay. Because number one, the number. Also, to be female in my field is huge. So
I didn't even think about that, but yes, you are correct. That is a male-dominated industry.
So to be female on top of that makes me more of a unicorn, right? But there are days that I don't want to be the unicorn, to be honest. There are days I show up and I just want to be Dr. Mary without all the expectation of, of being the certain way, to feel like I have all these people behind me that I'm, representing. So I better speak articulately. I better show up. I better be put together and everything better be in order. That's exhausting. And so one of the things that I pride myself on is just showing up authentically, but also recognizing that space when I'm not at my best, sitting in a space to own that, because I don't know anyone that's at their best every day. And if they say that, they're not being honest. But speaking to myself with grace as well and saying, Dr. Mary, you are saying what your authentic experience is. You can't speak for all of those other folks. But if I can at least show up, and if my experience is different than the other folks that are a part of that less than 5%, I'm still showing up. And sometimes showing up is all I have to do.
Yes. I remember Oprah Winfrey used to speak about that, being a Black female. And at that time, she was overweight in the media industry on television constantly. A lot of times she would say, the best thing that I can do is show up. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just showing up. And that a lot of times is the hardest thing to do is show up. That's the hardest thing to do is to show up. What does your recharge look like, Dr. Mary? What does your self-care look like?
So it's getting a lot better.
Okay.
I'll be transparent in that. I have a 3-year-old son and husband that I spend time with, and I have a host of relatives, my sister and her family. It looks like saying no and setting boundaries, right? No, I can't do that. No, I probably shouldn't do that. And even in the space of with an employer, I value my off time. So I'm not able to do that. I didn't used to do that because I felt like that looked like weakness because I
Okay.
wanted to be everywhere doing everything for everybody. I didn't take leave. I was always the person that would leave, and I had this ridiculous amount of leave because I never took off. That leads to burnout. So, what my recharge looks like is setting boundaries and saying no, taking time with my family, but also taking time by myself. Most recently, I've done trying to figure out TikTok and all that, but I've gone to the beach. I walked the beach in the morning time. I didn't feel like getting up, but I forced myself to do that. I've written a lot of stuff, not published, but just written my thoughts down and really gave myself the opportunity to be in the space to accept where I'm at. I meditate as well.
Mhm.
I start my day, I have Calm on my phone. So I may have waves
And
going on.
that's an app, right? The Calm app you're talking about?
It is awesome. There's a story on there LeBron James did that was just phenomenal, just to get you up and get you ready to let you know that you can do it. I'm not any different than anyone else. I put my pants on just like everybody else does. I have days I wake up that I don't want to be Dr. Mary. I don't.
Yes.
But by taking the time out and doing those things and setting those boundaries and following through with those boundaries, honoring myself, giving myself grace, meditation, though all of those things help me. And writing has become something I've become very passionate about. All those are things that help me to recharge.
What is something you wish that people would have told you early on when pursuing higher education and higher degrees?
That it could be a double-edged sword.
How
That
so?
showing up and being the educated person is great. But that there may be some internal emotional things that you have to deal with based on a community or a setting not being willing to accept who you are. I never saw that coming. So it's knowing that it's not always going to be where you're in this space where people are like, oh, please come in. We're so happy you're here. You're
Mhm.
so educated that's not always going to be the experience.
Do you think that would have lessened the harsh realities of the experience had someone told you that early on? Would you have been able to receive that and accept that?
I think it would have helped. I come from, if I don't touch the stove, I don't know it's hot. So
Okay.
I'm not going to say it would have stopped me from doing what I'm doing. I think it wouldn't have been a blind spot. It was a blind spot I totally did not see because, like I said, I was always under the narrative of get your education, Mary. Once you get it, nobody can take it from you.
Hmm.
And ever since Credential One, people have been trying to come forward and take it the entire time.
Yes.
That was a blind spot for me. I never expected to find that. And like I shared earlier, I never expected to be the diversity face ever. Like I never saw that coming. And so it's happened to me so many times that I've embraced it because fighting it is pointless. And so I have embraced it and it is a part truly of my story. And I'm okay with that now. I didn't used to be.
Have you gotten to a place, Dr. Mary, in your career and in your life where you can start mentoring the next Black generation of psychologists?
I have now. Really interesting about that. I'm gonna keep it brief. I have definitely, so throughout my career, I was already licensed. So I've gotten so many people licensed. But what I found, and I always had a propensity to help folks that were in that vulnerable population and folks that look like me. That was from the moment I got mine because I had so many hurdles to get it. My gift was to give it back to other people. Unfortunately, I have had too many experiences where people have sabotaged that, or after I have helped them, they no longer have any reason to continue a relationship. So it's been most recently, I helped to get someone a promotion, and the moment that before the promotion was even signed, the moment the person knew they got it, I became enemy number one.
Oh,
And
wow.
absolutely. And it became, I can do her job. And it was that whole, rather than lifting each other up, it was that whole, I hate to use the analogy, but crabs in a barrel.
Hmm.
But what I've decided is that's not going to stop me from helping other folks, because my purpose is to make sure that there's good representation and there's sound clinicians and psychologists out here to help when I'm out. I have to believe in that with a 3-year-old son.
What would you tell universities they could do to help underrepresented students in their classrooms and in their colleges and universities?
To take it beyond the discussion and a slogan, and to
Mhm.
make it an actual piece that's woven throughout their programming. So rather than say, oh, we're diversity friendly, we do da 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 da, do you really though? I would
Mhm.
also say doing an assessment from the folks that you're trying to support. What I have found a lot of most recently is support that you may think is showing up and is helping that person. Their idea of support may be totally different. Like we talked about earlier, it's representation. It may be that I just see someone that looks like me on that board of directors.
Right. And that's all it takes.
That's it. Yep. Yep.
As we get ready to wrap up, Dr. Mary, what is your intention in this space? I feel like you have navigated so many trials, pitfalls, but also triumphs and lessons learned during this journey of higher education, higher degrees, being one of very, very few African Americans in the psychology space. At this point in time, what is your intention? What is your goal?
To show up, to challenge the narrative, and to prepare the folks behind me that are going to take the flag when I'm at the space where I'm leaving.
Yes, yes.
Because what I told someone recently is, you as a clinician, psychologist, you may just be preparing your client for the next person,
Mm-hmm.
because it may be that your willingness to listen is all that client needed to get to start their journey. So the other thing is, I understand that there's purpose and reason, and so sometimes it's just to show up, to challenge the narrative. So there has to be a follow-up conversation.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, my final question for you, Dr. Mary. Who do you think would make a great guest on the podcast? But you have to help me get them on.
So I'm going to say Mr. Philip Woolfolk would be awesome. So Mr. Philip is an engaging speaker, and his examples really speak to who he is. He's not only going to say what he does, he's about it.
Okay. Oh, that's going to be fun. That's going to be a fun podcast. We always love engaging speakers around here.
Absolutely. And he's going to talk to you about finances and being financially responsible. And that's key. That's incredibly crucial,
Mhm.
especially for people of color. It's very important.
Well, Dr. Mary, thank you so much for being vulnerable on this podcast and sharing your trials, sharing your triumphs, but more importantly, sharing the lessons learned. Because by you sharing that, other people will be able to learn those lessons and not necessarily have to go through everything you went through to learn those lessons. So, for that, I appreciate you so much.
And I appreciate the opportunity, and definitely for you allowing this space to go to your network.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And to my community, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. You can get Dr. Mary's podcast and all of my other podcasts on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.